Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Big Six. Today we are talking about Leeds United, who may have answered their striking conundrum with the potential signing of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It looks like he's going to sign in at Elland Road. We are going to look at the good, the bad, and assess whether this is a good move. So let's start with the bad. I think there's more bad in this one than there is good. I think that there are many red flags to throw on this move for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. That ranges from his form, his injury record, and just the general feeling around him as a player. There's been a lot of negativity, as far as I can see, from Leeds fans that this deal is happening. So to start with the injury record, Calvert-Lewin has missed 50 games since the start of the 2022-23 season. A lot of them have been hamstring injuries, which is very concerning because hamstrings are such a vital part of how a player plays. They are the power almost behind a player, and if you have hamstrings that are not 100% there. I can remember players like Kieran Dyer who always had trouble with hamstrings. They could really affect a player and affect their long-term ability. I think Michael Owen was also one that suffered with hamstring problems, and that kind of slowed his career down as well. So the hamstring injuries are a massive concern for Leeds, and I think they're a concern for Calvert-Lewin. That's what really sort of derailed his career from where he was sort of 5 years ago to where he is right now. His goal record as well, this goes kind of hand in hand with the injury record, but his goal record has not been the best since the 2020-21 season. He hasn't hit double figures since then, and last season he was down to like 3 goals in the Premier League, and he was fit a lot last season. So it's concerning that his goal record seems to be sort of drying up, and his finishing ability seems to be on the decline as well. The fan feeling, I mentioned this as well, but the fan feeling from Leeds fans, but also other clubs, is quite telling. I think a lot of clubs were very happy to see that it wasn't their club that were in on Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I think a lot of Leeds fans, that as far as I can tell, are not massively pleased that they are the ones who are making this move. And I think that just, again, it comes from his injury record, the fact that he was such a big player for Everton, and he's struggled to find that form, and it's been a while now since Dominic Calvert-Lewin has been at the top of his game, and Leeds are taking a big risk to sign a 28-year-old who has been iffy at best over the last few seasons, and thinking that might be the answer to their problems. And I think as well, another telling thing is where was Dominic Calvert-Lewin on Leeds' list of targets, because they were heavily linked with Rodrigo Muniz. He's went to Atalanta, he's about to go there, so it feels like that deal, Leeds sort of found out they weren't getting Muniz and then maybe pivoted to their second target. And I think as well for Calvert-Lewin, there's been all that talk of the agent where he's fired his agent, but he was being touted with like Man United, Newcastle, and it feels like maybe his ambitions were a little bit too high. He saw himself moving for one of the established Premier League clubs, and he's having to then go for a newly promoted club. We know the struggles of newly promoted clubs and how hard it is for them to survive in the Premier League. But it feels to me like this is a move that both are each other's sort of second or third choice. I don't think Leeds saw Dominic Calvert-Lewin as the man. At the start of the window, I doubt that this was their number one target, and I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin didn't see Leeds as one of his targets to move to. So again, is it a marriage of convenience almost? Is that what I'm putting across? Maybe it is, and that's interesting. And is that a healthy way to start, with signing a new player, a marriage of convenience? But there are positives to this as well. Don't get me wrong, there are many red flags to throw on this, but there are also lots of positives that Leeds fans can take from it. Firstly, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is a very physical striker, and even last season he ranked very well for aerial duels and physicality, and it's obvious that Leeds want physicality in their squad. That's what their transfer business has been about, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin ticks that box. This is another physical body, big, strong, decent pace. This is somebody that fits into the Leeds recruitment really well. So I can see why he was a player they were interested in. It's just the other issues, which is why this is a more concerning deal. And I also think with Calvert-Lewin, his time at Everton, it felt like he was getting a little bit stale. It felt like that marriage together would just sort of, they were ready to drift apart. They were ready for a divorce in a matter of words. And I think it was stale for him at Everton. And a new club and new surroundings might breathe new life into him as a striker. And look, that's almost, it's conjecture, isn't it? It's one of them. It's a feeling thing, isn't it? Like, it feels like Calvert-Lewin needed a new home, and Leeds is not a bad place to be if he can hit the ground running there. That support base, that fan base, Elland Road, they will fall in love with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and he could build himself, a new home there. And that is very, very possible with this. If he hits the ground running at Leeds, the world could be his oyster. And I think ultimately Leeds are probably gambling, similar to like Burnley with Brozier. They are gambling that they can find the player of a few years ago and bring them back. That's what Burnley did with Brozier. Brozier has had a few years where he's had injuries, he's not been able to find his form, and they've gambled that they can find the player that was at Southampton like in 2021. Leeds are basically doing the same thing. They are gambling that Dominic Calvert-Lewin can be the striker that they need, and that he can be the striker that was 5 years ago, and they can bring him back, get that form back, or at least close to that form back. Both of these clubs are having to take risks. They're new to promote the Premier League. It is hard to attract established Premier League strikers, and these are two players, Calvert-Lewin and Brozier, that are proven to an extent in the Premier League and were willing to make that move. So that's why this is really, really interesting for Leeds. And I think if they can find 80% of that player that existed 4 or 5 years ago, this is a hell of a pickup. And I think as well it addresses a need for Leeds. They've got Peru, they've got Nemecha. Neither of them scream 10 Premier League goals. And I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, fully fit for the season, that's 10 Premier League goals. I genuinely think he could hit that target at Leeds if he's given the right service and whatnot. He's proven himself in the past that he can do that. And I think that was Leeds' thought process here. They're adding in an experienced striker with Premier League experience. It could work. So my overall view on this, it depends on what the sort of contract is. If Leeds are giving Dominic Calvert-Lewin, say, a 2-year deal, it's low risk, it's a free transfer, it's not costing them in terms of a fee. Yes, they'll have to pay signing bonus and all that sort of thing, but that's good. If it's a shorter deal and that's low risk for Leeds. If it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin on, say, a 4 or 5 year deal, and this is Leeds' only answer in terms of striking options this summer, I'm not sold on it. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's right for Leeds. I think it's concerning if they think Peru, Nemecha and Calvert-Lewin are their options going forward this season. I just don't think that that's a right fit for Leeds, and I think that they can do better than that in the transfer market. 2 free signings, and then Peru, who has had an interesting relationship with Leeds and Daniel Farke. So that's where I kind of sit on this. It really depends. If Leeds bring in a 30-40 million pound striker, clearly they've got the budget to do that. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin is kind of coming in to be a 1B. They'll bring in a 1A, he'll be a 1B. Maybe, yeah. But if it's not that, then I think this is concerning. And I think overall, I just like Dominic Calvert-Lewin when he's fit and firing. That player from 4 or 5 years ago was amazing. Just don't know if that player still exists right now. And that's the big question. That's the burning question for Leeds fans. But I'll be interested to hear what you think. Comment and, like, subscribe and whatnot. But get in the debate. Is this a good move for Leeds United?